right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rise and Lead Collective. It's already September 25th, and I'm super excited to have you as always. I'm Nicole, and today I'm really excited to introduce you to something I've personally developed that has absolutely transformed the way I approach leadership. It's called the PATH methodology for coaching. And this framework has really been key in helping myself as a leader really effectively lean into coaching conversations. And what I'm going to show you today, you can actually take bits and pieces of it or apply all of it right away super effectively. And it can be applied literally the moment you stop watching this video to drive performance and support your people a little better. I want to start by talking about why so many leaders don't embrace coaching or they don't fully see its value, whether it's time constraints or feeling that they need to have all the answers. Some of these barriers can stop us from tapping into one of the most impactful leadership tools, and that's coaching. By the end of today's session, you'll have a really clear understanding of how you can actually use the PATH framework and have meaningful coaching conversations that really drive team performance and allow them to really perform at their best. So let's get started. Here are just some of the reasons why you as a leader are not using a coaching method or you're just shying away from coaching altogether. And these are some of the reasons I've seen, and I'm sure there's more, but here are like the top five. Number one, fear of vulnerability. That's right. We as leaders, we're totally fearful of looking vulnerable in front of our people. And coaching requires admitting that we don't have all the answers and we're looking to be collaborative in this. And so leaders shy away when they don't feel like they have all the answers. It leads them to feeling pretty vulnerable in their role. Number two, time constraints. This is a big one for leaders, regardless if you're leading sales teams or operations teams. Coaching is often viewed as a really time consuming activity with no immediate returns. And so leaders might think that they can accomplish tasks much faster if they do them themselves than really spending time coaching my team. Is that really driving performance? This is what's holding you back, time constraints. Number three, pressure for short term results. Regardless if you're in sales or not, leaders are constantly focusing on hitting immediate targets rather than develop long term capabilities. Coaching is seen as something that pays off later, not now, not going to do it. Number four, lack of skills or confidence in coaching. So lots of leaders, they don't have training on this. They were never taught how to coach effectively. They don't have certificates in coaching, and that's okay. But it doesn't really give you a reason to avoid it. Just because you don't feel confident, you can start applying the path right after today's session. And number five, the misconception that coaching is soft. So some leaders think that coaching is just about being nice and it's not as effective as being direct and giving orders. Like we have a job to do. So why am I going to spend time coaching? Coaching is too soft. I'd rather spend my time being tough. And there are lots and lots of leaders out there that believe that being tough gets results faster. I disagree. So, allow me to introduce you to the PATH coaching method. And the PATH is PATH. I'm going to introduce you to what those mean in just a second. But this method offers a really simple and powerful framework for your coaching. And it really helps you focus on helping team members overcome their own barriers and develop their own solutions. It's an actionable tool that leaders can actually apply immediately. Like I said, after you get off this call, you can apply it immediately to support your team in problem solving and growth. So let me break down the path. Number one, the P stands for prepare. Define the situation. Clarify the current situation or challenge your team member is facing today. And by doing this, we actually build trust with our teams so that we can get to the heart of the matter faster. And it's all about the first question you ask your team member when they join a coaching session. And it's as simple as this: what's the specific challenge you're facing and how are you feeling about it? That's it. Lead with that question, and it's very open ended and allows them to go in a bunch of different directions. Okay. Number two, the A stands for acknowledge. Identify barriers and emotions. This is where we want to get to the core of the thing that's holding them back. Okay. So maybe it's they're not hitting their sales targets or they're not fully engaged in their role, just as a couple of examples. But you really want to acknowledge the feelings and frustration that your team members may have. And here's why so many leaders shy away from coaching is because they don't want to get into the emotions. But guess what? Your team members are not robots, and everybody comes with a set of emotions. You'll never be able to get away from that. So, why not identify it up front so we're not having to dance around some of these barriers and emotions? Let's just get it out on the table. Now, there's one thing about the A and acknowledge is you've got to learn how to use empathetic listening skills and asking probing questions. If you've ever been in sales, this is where your discovery training comes into play. Come prepared to the coaching session with lots of questions. You may not get to all of them, but at least you've got open ended probing questions that you can help explore these barriers and some of these emotions that are maybe holding your team member back from performing. Number three, the T, think. This is where we explore options. And I use we explore options with extra emphasis because this is where we brainstorm potential solutions. But this is where a lot of leaders get stuck because they want to use their advice dragon and they want to advise their team member on what to do. Oh, I have an idea. It's so easy for us as leaders to have the solutions right at our fingertips. If their team member could only see what to do, wouldn't it be easier? But no, this is where asking more guiding questions comes into play. Rather than telling them what to do, guide them through. Asking questions like, what do you think is the best approach? Have you brainstormed any solutions before coming today? Those are some really easy questions that can help your team member figure out what the options are without us dumping all of our ideas onto them. And number four, the H stands for help. Now, this is where the work comes into play. This is where we're defining the next steps. This is how you make sure that your coaching method isn't soft. If you miss the fourth step and you're not implementing action, yeah, coaching's pretty soft. So, work with your team to develop a really clear action plan with a defined timeline. This is where support and accountability come into play. And that keyword, accountability. Again, this is how your coaching method is not soft. This is where, as leaders, we offer ongoing support and set in checkpoints to review that progress. That we created this action plan together. We got to make sure that we're diving in and making sure that we're getting the progress that we need. So, as leaders, how can you apply the path immediately? So here's four things you can do. Number one, you can start with one conversation. Just pick one team member to coach using the path and focus on a current challenge they're facing. And you don't need to call it a coaching conversation. Just use the path with your weekly check ins. That's number two. Use the path in weekly check ins. Instead of a typical performance review, turn your next one on one into a coaching session using the path framework and see how it goes. Number three, empower your team. Use path to help your team to think through solutions rather than always, again, using that advice dragon and providing the answers. This helps your team develop better problem solving skills, and having them rely on us as leaders less and less is always a good thing. And number four, my favorite, integrate. You got it. DISC. Consider using DISC to understand your team's communication styles. This will lead to way better coaching conversations. If you implement DISC and the path together, you're going to be remarkable in your coaching. All right, in closing, coaching isn't just about having all the answers, it's about empowering your team to discover their own answers. Leaders who coach create more capable teams, they're more engaged in their leadership, and they create more productive teams. So the PATH framework is your tool to impactful coaching conversations. Start using it today and thank me later. But after today's session, what I want you to do is schedule one coaching conversation with one team member this week. Use the PATH framework and reflect on how the conversation differed from your typical approach. Now, let me walk you through what the 4 steps are one more time. Number 1, prepare. Number 2, acknowledge. Number 3, think. And finally, the action step. Number 4, help. Define those next steps, hold your team accountable, and watch your coaching and leadership thrive. Thanks for joining today. I'll see you next week.